with Downhill Mike today. He's a transplant from Lake Placid, living out in Boulder City, one of the greatest towns here in Las Vegas. He's a race director out at Bootleg, running XC races and gravity races, and he runs a shuttle out there at Bootleg as well.
Yeah, correct. I'm Downhill Mike. I've been living in Boulder City now for probably 17 years. Moved here from Lake Placid, New York. I love creating and putting on the mountain bike races. They started with Gravity, which was dual slalom, downhill, and Super D and enduro. But now we've added cross country, and we've recently added an endurance discipline or category to the cross country. That seems real popular. I've also been running the intro to bootleg rides because a lot of people, they think bootleg's only downhill and super gnar. So what I wrote on Facebook last week, which got a decent amount of people, was it's not all gnar. I'll show you where it's not gnar, where there's fun, flowy trails where you're not going to be showing off broken bones and scary trails that most people can't ride. Bootleg has that, but I want to show you the really fun trails. So please come to our intro to bootleg rides, and we also showcase the XC course. Just in case you're not sure, you've been reluctant to race XC because you've heard, it's all downhill. Please show up on a Saturday for the intro to bootleg rides. I'm DH Mike on Facebook, Downhill Mike Scheuer on Instagram. Very easy to get a hold of. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's interesting you say I need to talk to or maybe I should listen to my parents. And I had this conversation with my 15-year-old son the other day where he's starting to think, what am I going to do with my life? And I try to tell him, don't be focused on money. Money shouldn't be the reason that you're going to do something in life. Because if you do something that you love, you're going to find a way to make it.
Right. Yeah, no, I started off in a family business, something I did not want to do. And the money was good. And then, I was traveling out west, I think 3 times a year for 5 weeks at a time. I joke I would always just take one more vacation than I could afford. But I wanted to get my foot in the door out here. One of the people that came up to my rides on Saturday, I met 20 plus years ago at a Blue Diamond ride. I think it was not a turkey trot, but it was a Thanksgiving ride with 100 people. And you may even know him, Robin Brown. He's in Big Bear now, but
sure.
Just certain people that he actually drove from Team Big Bear to come out here to see me to actually get on their mailing list for Team Big Bear and try to help our series. And there's a lot of people that see what we do, and this has happened our whole career, so we must be onto something good. They're like, wow, what you're doing is great. We really want to help you. How can we help you? And maybe I think I need to learn better how to not listen, because I listen, but just know what to accept, I guess.
Because a lot of people are there willing to offer, right? They're a help or whatever. But I want to jump back a little bit. And
sure.
So you had your family had a business, and were they trying to direct you in that direction, saying, "Hey, Mike, come work over here"?
I kind of just jumped in because I figured it would be that's what I should do. It was fairly easy. Yeah. I didn't have to go to a job interview, and money was okay. But I was selling. It's kind of funny because then I was selling a product that was unimportant. People really didn't need. But I justified it by, I was a wholesale distributor. So if I can go to a store, and it was a mom and pop shop, if I could sell them something that they could sell and make money and help with their business, I was like, it doesn't matter if it's a stupid item, it's helping everybody. This person bought this dumb thing, and these other people made money, and we're all, making a living off of it. But then I started mountain biking, and I just, now I sell a service. So if I work at the service and I'm really the main contact or the only person that they speak with, I feel like I can sell a really great product rather than a crummy item that really doesn't mean anything.
And was it the mountain biking that brought you out west? You want to come out here and do those trips mountain biking?
Yeah, and I would just, it's funny because I would just, I'd be back east in Lake Placid, New York, and it was a slow season, and it might not have been the most responsible of choices, but I'd be fed up with things and be like, how quickly can I pack my car and head out west for 5 weeks? And
with your bike?
With my bikes, actually, a few of them. And which bill's going to have to pay? And I'd actually check credit cards. I have this much room on this one. I could do this. I better fill up gas in Moab, and I can sleep in my car this night. So basically, I did whatever I had to do. Figure it out to make it happen.
So a few bikes, and you got to tell me what kind of bikes you had.
Oh, a downhill bike, a trail bike, and I thought I needed a dirt jumper, but I was too old to learn for dirt jumping and that kind of discipline. But I wanted to try flat pedals rather than clip in, and it just made sense for that.
Yeah.
And I was also a giant dealer, so it was very easy to order an extra bike with my fleet that I would, rent out for the year.
Yeah. And what year was this when you started making these trips out west?
Oh man, it was probably 2008 or so. And then the first year, I've always known the crew out at All Mountain Cyclery
Out in Boulder City.
Bootleg Canyon in Boulder City. So I was actually a shuttle driver for them for the first year for their race. So Jeff Frampton, super sharp guy, has just opened a second All Mountain Cyclery. He was actually timing the race, which we would never do. We would always hire timers out. But he was the race promoter. He was the race everything and the timer. So at the end of the race, when they finally got the results out, I could see the stress level on Jeff, and I asked him, hey, I do this back east. Is this something I could do? He put his hand out, shook my hand, and said, it's yours. So the following year, this was the only thing I did. I did not have a busy, successful shop like Jeff did. So the only thing I had to do was just figure out how to, promote the races that they were happening out there, but on a much smaller scale. We're actually affiliated with USA Cycling. So the races in the past were non-sanctioned races, and all of a sudden people needed these points to get to the nationals or for other, cycling, achievements. So all of a sudden there was sanctioned USA Cycling racing at Bootleg, and I saw definitely a need or a market for that.
And teaming up with USA Cycling, I think one of the big benefits is they've got the structure, but then also the insurance as well.
Correct, and it's funny, a lot of people say the insurance must be really expensive, and maybe it is elsewhere, but when we go with USA Cycling, I think it's $5.99 per rider per day. So it's actually one of the least expensive things there is to put in a race. And some people say, well, what else is there? And I say, well, look around. There's toilets, there's staff, there's, everything you see are things that the race promoter has to pay for.
Yeah, I had no idea how much those toilet costs. My son was doing a Nike race a couple weeks ago, and on the Johns, they had a big sign, they're trying to do some fundraising showing it's like, what, $1,000 to $1,200 each event that they're paying for the porta
Depends how many
potties.
they get. We were paying, we were paying like $125 a unit, and then they went to $175 a unit. So I thought that was high, and then I'm calling them up saying, you raised your prices 50%, so I'm glad I didn't see that sign that you saw.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have had a dozen toilets, and we were going to do an event with on BLM land where it was U.S. Forest Service land. So now you have BLM rules and U.S. Forest Service land, and we were going to have a big endurance race with like 400 people. Well, they said that's great, but you need to have a toilet for every 25 people or something like that. Well, I think, and then it would have been like $4,000 or $5,000 for that stuff. But I got a little bit scared on that because it was just. We're just a small, we run events at Bootleg and a couple others, but we really can't take a risk of a big event that if it didn't work out, it would be our last event. We like, keeping them like, the size we have them at.
Yeah, because you're an event coordinator as well as you run a shuttle at Bootleg for downhill riders.
Yeah, and that's downhill and gravity riders. I'd say half the people in the shuttle, they actually hike up top to the downhill trails, and the other half they have regular half helmets and they're not fully padded, and they just ride kind of the cross-country trails down from the top.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know there's a difference between downhill and gravity.
Well, we have Super D races and downhill races. Super D race is kind of like a single-stage enduro, but they don't go down the face of Bootleg Canyon. For example, a downhill run, we would have chainless runs, and the top pros would always do the chainless runs. Their times weren't much different without a chain than they were with a chain. If you try to do a chainless run on a Super D trail, or even just an XC trail, or a downhill part of a regular XC trail, you'd just be sitting there waiting for you to go. You'd be sitting still. So downhill is full-on gravity, different type of bike, and different skills.
Yeah.
And I kind of retired from that I'm 63 now, so I made it till I was 59.
You yourself doing those rides?
Yeah, I did a couple races, but I was just into riding.
Yeah.
I didn't really like having a clock on me. I would just go by myself and try to do things that used to be scary that became not scary, and then I'd say, okay, must be getting better.
See, for me, getting on the dirt was just scary in and of itself. Like, I rode the road for a number of years, stayed away from the dirt, and it was my son that ended up bringing me into mountain biking.
Oh, cool. I should thank your son.
Yeah, I know. It was, so I broke my leg skiing, and he loved to ride, and I just couldn't ride with him because I had a broken leg. Okay. And so he's looking around, and he found NICA. And so he says, Dad, I want to do this NICA, and it worked out because I could go drop him off, and he could ride for a couple hours with with some people that are qualified that would watch them and take care of them, and then I could, sit in the car with my broken leg.
And snowboarding was actually my start. I'm originally, as I mentioned, from the East Coast.
From Lake Placid, right? Is that
Well,
what you said?
actually, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. But in 1995, I needed more vertical than the 500 feet of vertical that the small ski areas south of Buffalo offered. So I figured if I moved to Lake Placid, where I actually had a sales route that would go from Buffalo to Lake Placid, it's like I could just move to Lake Placid and reverse my sales route. So I bought a season's pass and I started snowboarding 100 plus days a year and just based my life around snowboarding. And then in the summer, I convinced Whiteface Mountain, which is owned by New York State, that they should have a downhill bike park there. So I won't go into all the details, but that's where I became my name, Downhill Mike, and I became obsessed with building that business. And just like Bootleg Canyon, Whiteface was, most people would say, I'm not going to ride there, that's way too scary. So I've never made it where it was like an easy sell, but I get frustrated when I'm like, how come people don't listen to me? It's scary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because bootleg does have this connotation of a very difficult place to ride.
well, that's my goal now, what I started last year, and you may have read on the internet last week. I've been doing these intro to bootleg rides, and most people that come to bootleg, well, everybody has a camera, but I would say they're younger, they think it's cool if they get hurt, and they show broken bones and scars, and I was like, that is scaring everybody away from bootleg. So it's like, I'm older, I'll show you the cross-country trails. Bootleg's not all that gnar. Trust me and come on these rides with me. So they're becoming somewhat popular for my little voice on the internet. I'm okay with the crowds that we've, been attracting.
And so they're at bootleg, right? And there are some green runs, right? The easy runs, but I think even those green runs, there are a couple spots on there that are a little hairy.
There are, so I stop at those sections. But if you think about it, the one route we take, there's actually 2 loops that are each 5K or 3.1 miles. There's a couple sections that people might walk. And for example, when we put on races, there's beginners, sport, and experts. I tell the beginners, don't worry if you walk that section, all the other beginners did too. And now this loop that might take you 20 minutes, might take you 20 minutes and 15 seconds. So if you have to walk a 15-second section of a trail, usually you only have to do that a handful of times before you actually do that. Or if you don't, that's okay too. We don't want to, getting hurt is not cool, which is what I'm trying to push.
So I've raced your XC races, and there's one section that I've always walked, and it's coming over Imba, over that little rocky
That's that one section that's kind of like a V like this, where you want to stay right and stay on the wall ride.
Yeah.
Because it looks like if you just go down, your front end's gonna compress, and you're just gonna go over.
So there was one time that I rode it, and I was following Mike Heilman, and he went, because I think you got to go to the right. He went to the left and went straight off, and I followed him
And
right
it's actually
off.
a 4 or 3 foot drop. You could probably roll if you go that way.
Yeah, and I followed him right off of that thing, but I was fine, right? Because I was just watching him and just following his will, and kind of like what you're talking about, like getting the youngsters out there, showing them, hey, this isn't this
And
bad.
I don't even
as long
use
as you
that
know.
course anymore for that reason.
Yeah.
I don't. If I can have a course where nobody has to walk, that's my goal. So we don't make a right on Imba anymore. We make a left on a newer trail that was actually cut for adaptive, like hand cycles and that. So it's a little bit wider. It's the only trail at bootleg that was built by machines. There's like tabletop jumps and berms. There's one tabletop jump, and I've been riding this for like 3 years, and it's probably like 20 feet to like clear it to make it all the way to the transition. And I'm 63 now, which I said earlier. My goal or my joke is to make that transition by the time I hit 65. You'll hear the biggest, woo-hoo, but it's scary. So it's still, I ride all this stuff, but I have the same feelings that everyone else does.
No, and yeah, it's fun watching those kids. Those kids will jump, but I do not like to get my tires off the air. I like to keep them on the dirt.
Oh, I probably get like this much air. And now that I'm on an e-bike, I feel like not only there's no one faster than me, but I feel like it's like this much air.
Yeah, those things are fast and dangerous.
But I've been riding with Heilman, and he's actually been helping me. He's the one that told me my last event, the dates were just awful. You conflicted with everything possible. Did you try to make this conflict with everything? And he didn't say that. But he said enough where he's offered his help, which I'm taking him up on.
For Mike Heilman's help.
Yeah, actually, Mike Heilman And NICA, I just went over my dates for the Coyote Classic, which are going to be September, October, and November of 2025. And I don't even dare put those dates in or start on any of the work with any of the work until, I know there's no conflicts.
Yeah. So wait, and I know, I think last year with the Coyote Classic, you did the basic XC, and then you started doing an endurance event, and you had kind of a big name mountain biker come out and basically tear everybody up, even though he was in his 60s.
Oh no, that was still we had an endurance. We didn't add enduro, but the big name
endurance,
biker.
yes.
It's he's actually like a half year older than me. I think he might have just turned 64. He's still winning races. He's been a professional mountain biker since the early 80s. He was actually a BMX pro, and then I think in the late 80s or 90, he went cross country. And his name's Tinker Juarez. Long dreads, very recognizable.
Very skinny.
Yeah, and very. Yeah. I think he lives outside, so he's also very weathered. Very distinguished, look that he's has.
Yeah,
recognizable though.
Very nice guy. Very approachable.
Very skinny. I mean, someone like that, they have zero body fat on them.
Yeah, and he's fast. It was fun because there's some kids here in Vegas that are getting pretty fast, and he was even beating those kids. Hands down, just
I tried to,
no competition.
To call up the one kid or just tease him with emails, say Tinker's coming. Do you know who he is? And when I spoke with Tinker about this, and this, nobody was on Tinker, so Tinker didn't even have to push it, but he's been racing 45 years. So then I mentioned to him, we got some fast kids here. I'm going to try to get here. I forgot what he said, but it was. He's like, I'm not going to let a 15-year-old kid pass me.
Yeah.
And when I mentioned that to him the next event, he was like, I said that? I was like, yeah, don't worry, dude. It's fine.
Yeah.
But no, he's a really nice guy.
So are you going to continue with that, with the endurance event as well as just the regular XC style?
Actually, we added endurance, and the only change we had to make was it starts 2 hours before the regular race, so everything ends at the same time. That's our most popular category. I mean, our XC races haven't taken off huge yet, but we're getting 15, 20 people in the endurance, where there might be, I'm hoping for at least 3 in the other category. So there's, you have to beat somebody to make it on the podium.
Yeah, and riding out there at Bootleg, doing that endurance, it really turns into a mental game, because you've got to be sharp.
Oh, now that we do the timing for the endurance or for the XC. I love geeking out on results. These guys are within seconds of each 6.5 mile lap. And they're doing 5 laps. And at first we did a 4-hour race. And then a couple of people said, 5 laps, a set amount of laps might be best. And it's funny because when we did the 4-hour race, Tinker Juarez, the legend that we mentioned, he would be sitting at the finish line after 7 or 8 laps. And it'd be it started at 8 in the morning, so at 12 noon, when the 4-hour cutoff, basically if you make it through that loop at noon, you have to go for another lap. He would sit there be waiting to see if anybody else was coming, because if nobody else was, he already won.
Yeah, so he didn't want to start.
Yeah, we might as well just make it a set amount of laps for everybody. And so far we've done that for a season, but we learn as we go, so that seems to be the best now. Yeah,
and so, talking about kind of growing the XC and getting some more people involved here in town to kind of help it, like you mentioned, Mike Heilman getting involved, where do you see the XC and specifically with what you're doing right out there in Bootleg, where would you like to see it?
Oh boy, I'd like, and actually this isn't the start, I'd like to see it a lot bigger, but part of a nice series where people are I've never been a hunter, but I've always compared things from certain people would never miss opening day on hunting season. I always want to have an event that people be like, I'm not missing that. So it's kind of a weird analogy. Maybe that was more of an East Coast thing, but yeah, I want to have an event that people just won't miss.
Yeah.
They look forward to every year.
And Bootleg's a great spot because I think Boulder City is actually pretty supportive of the events out there.
They are, and I'm hoping to get a gig with Boulder City to, probably shouldn't even mention this here, but I want to be an ambassador to Bootleg in Boulder City. I love convincing people that need to be convinced, come to Bootleg Canyon. Not only you'll love the trails, it's not that hard, you'll be a better mountain biker. Check out our town, it's awesome.
Yeah, and going back to Bootleg, and there are places out there that you can ride, and you're right, there are some G-outs, there's some technical spots that you can walk, but then, after a few times riding them, watching the right person, following the right line, you realize that as long as you keep your eyes forward and your weight right over the bike, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, and a lot of yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes me like 100 times to walk a section. And I'm like, well, that's okay. I'll ride it someday. And then even though I say that optimistically, when I do ride it, I'm kind of surprised at myself. But then I'm like, yes, I did it. So it's nice to see, improvements like that.
Yeah.
But I don't, I'm 63 now, and I think I'm okay with. I'm over the improvements. I'm okay with just riding now, and I'm loving the e-bike. It levels the playing field. I ride with guys like Heilman, and I say things like, "Don't worry, I'll wait at the intersection for you." It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how to get there, so I'm 45. Again, I raced on the road, so I was always focused on getting better and better with regards to like the endurance, and of course the age then hits, and you start dropping down, and I don't know how to get to that point where if I can just go out and just have fun at the race instead of going out and trying to race it.
Well, the endurance guys seem to be like in their 50s or even 60. They seem to, like, they take 30 years to be able to get to that point. But granted, they must have had the skills beforehand, because they're not just starting at 40 or 50 and stuff that's scaring them and say, if I crash there, I'll be out for 3 weeks. My wife will kill me. So they've been doing it for their whole lives.
Now, I remember preparing for one of your events, and just on a really benign corner, I kind of washed out, landed on my finger, and my nail still has not grown out to be the same. That was over a year ago.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's part of it.
Yeah.
I was going to get used to it, but I don't want to say anything that's not encouraging either, But
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of it, right? It's part of the risk, and luckily, I think at home I have a supportive wife, right? She knows the risks, but she knows that it's for my health,
Right.
keep myself sane.
Yeah, no, you look very fit.
Yeah.
I mean, you ride, and you got your kids into racing, so.
Yeah, and just even more important mentally, right? Being in the right headspace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So cool. Yeah, thanks, Mike,
Cool.
for coming out. Yeah, that was it.